Sarah Miller had been working at Valley Market for 3 years now, and she was tired. Not just the kind of tired that comes from standing on your feet for an 8-hour shift, but a bone-deep weariness that had settled in sometime between her second job and her ongoing night classes. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as she mechanically scanned items, barely looking up at the customers who passed through her lane. It was nearly the end of her shift when she noticed the old woman shuffling toward her register. The woman must have been in her late 70s, with wispy white hair pulled back in a loose bun and a faded blue coat that had seen better days. She carried a small basket containing only the basics: a loaf of bread, a carton of eggs, some tea bags, and a small container of milk. "Good afternoon," the elderly woman said with a gentle smile as she placed her items on the conveyor belt. "Hi," Sarah responded flatly, scanning the items with practiced efficiency. "That'll be $23.47, the old woman nodded and reached into her purse. Instead of pulling out a wallet, she produced a small cloth pouch that was tied with a fraying ribbon. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she watched the woman untie it carefully and begin to remove coins. "I've been saving these," the elderly woman explained, her voice soft and slightly shaky. "My husband, Tom, used to collect coins, and I found this jar in the basement last week. Thought I might as well put them to good use." Sarah didn't bother hiding her annoyance as the woman began counting pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters onto the counter. The line behind her was growing, and Sarah could feel her manager's eyes on her from across the store. "You know," Sarah said loudly enough for nearby customers to hear, "there's this amazing new invention called a debit card. Might want to join the current century." She forced a laugh that came out harder than she intended. The elderly woman's fingers paused momentarily, then continued counting. "I'm sorry for the trouble," she said quietly. "My eyes aren't what they used to be." Sarah glanced at the growing line behind the woman. Several customers were checking their watches or scrolling through their phones impatiently. One man in a business suit sighed dramatically and moved to another lane. $7.25, the elderly woman counted slowly. "Plus another 5, that makes $12.25. Sarah drummed her fingers on the counter. "Look, ma'am, there are people waiting." The woman's hands began to tremble slightly. A few coins slipped from her fingers and scattered across the counter. Some rolled onto the floor with tiny metallic sounds that seemed to echo in the sudden awkward silence. "Oh dear," the woman said, her cheeks flushing pink. She tried to bend down to retrieve the fallen coins but stopped halfway, wincing with obvious pain in her joints. Sarah didn't move to help. Instead, she looked up at the ceiling and let out an exaggerated sigh. "Does anyone have all day to wait?" she called out to the line, hoping someone might laugh or commiserate with her frustration. No one did. The elderly woman's shoulders hunched forward as she straightened up, embarrassment evident in every line of her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, fumbling with her coin pouch. "Maybe I should put some things back." The man who had been standing behind the elderly woman all this time stepped forward. He had been so quiet that Sarah had barely registered his presence. Just another customer in a baseball cap and dark sunglasses, probably trying to get in and out of the store without being recognized. He knelt down and began collecting the fallen coins from the floor. His movements were unhurried and deliberate as he picked up each penny and dime. When he had gathered them all, he stood and gently placed them in the elderly woman's palm. "I think you dropped these," he said in a voice that was surprisingly gentle for a man of his size. "Thank you, young man," the elderly woman said, blinking rapidly behind her glasses. "My eyes just aren't what they used to be, and these old hands don't work like they once did." The man smiled at her, a warm, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. "No rush at all. Take your time." Sarah rolled her eyes again. "Well, that's easy for you to say. Some of us have schedules to keep." The man in the cap turned toward Sarah then, and something in his posture made her suddenly uncomfortable. He reached up and removed his sunglasses, revealing eyes that were kind but intense. Sarah's mouth fell open as she recognized him instantly. Standing there in her checkout line, helping an elderly woman pick up scattered coins, was none other than Keanu Reeves. The actor looked directly at Sarah, his expression not angry but disappointed. The true measure of a person isn't how they treat those who can help them, he said quietly, but how they treat those who cannot. The words weren't spoken loudly, but they might as well have been shouted through a megaphone for the impact they had. Several people in line had now recognized him as well, and a hushed murmur spread through the checkout area. Sarah felt her face grow hot with shame. She looked down at the elderly woman, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time, not as an inconvenience or a delay, but as a human being deserving of patience and respect. The elderly woman, oblivious to the celebrity standing beside her, continued counting out her coins with trembling fingers. "I think that's $20 now," she said hopefully. "Just a bit more." "Please," Keanu said, placing a gentle hand on the woman's shoulder. "Allow me." He took out his wallet and handed Sarah enough cash to cover the groceries. "Oh, I couldn't." "Possibly," the elderly woman protested when she realized what was happening. "My mother taught me to help whenever I can," Keanu replied with a genuine smile. "It would be my honor." The elderly woman looked up at him, confusion giving way to gratitude. "Well, that's very kind of you. Very kind indeed." She patted his hand with her weathered one. "Your mother raised you right." Sarah stood frozen behind the register, scanner forgotten in her hand. The store had grown unusually quiet, with everyone watching the scene unfold. Even her manager had stopped pretending to arrange a nearby display and was openly staring. "Could you help this lady with her bags?" Keanu asked Sarah, his tone polite but firm. "Of course," Sarah stammered, quickly bagging the groceries. Her hands felt clumsy and her mouth dry. "I'm so sorry for the wait," she added, glancing at the elderly woman. The woman nodded but didn't quite meet her eyes. After helping the elderly woman with her bags, Keanu stepped up to the register with his own few items. As Sarah scanned them, she tried to think of something to say, an apology, an explanation, anything, but the words wouldn't come. "Is the manager available?" Keanu asked as he paid. Sarah's heart sank. Of course he would want to report her behavior. She'd probably lose her job, and she desperately needed this income for her classes. "Yes, he's right over there," she said, pointing to where her manager was pretending not to eavesdrop. "His name is David." Keanu nodded, collected his purchase, and walked over to speak with David. Sarah watched them from her register, her stomach twisted in knots as she imagined what was being said. She could see her manager nodding repeatedly, occasionally glancing in her direction. To her surprise, before leaving the store, Keanu returned to her register. The line had dwindled as customers moved to other checkouts, giving them a moment of relative privacy. "I didn't ask for you to be fired if that's what you're worried about," he said quietly. Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you. I really need this job." Keanu nodded. "Everyone has bad days, but remember, the person in front of you is fighting a battle you know nothing about." He paused, his expression thoughtful. "That woman reminded me of my grandmother. She used to count out coins the same way." With that, he turned and walked out of the store, leaving Sarah to contemplate his words and the elderly woman's dignity in the face of her cruelty. As she helped the next customer, she made a silent promise to herself to do better tomorrow. Keanu Reeves hadn't planned on stopping at Valley Market that afternoon. He was in town filming his latest movie, an action thriller that had brought him to this small community for 6 weeks of location shoots. Usually his assistant would handle everyday errands, but today Keanu had wanted some fresh air and time alone with his thoughts. The baseball cap and sunglasses were his standard attempt at blending in. They rarely worked completely. Someone usually recognized him eventually, but they at least bought him a few minutes of normalcy. He'd grabbed a basket and wandered the aisles, picking up some protein bars, a bottle of water, and a magazine. Standing in the checkout line, Keanu had been lost in thought about tomorrow's scene when he noticed the elderly woman in front of him. There was something about her that reminded him of his own grandmother. Perhaps it was the careful way she held herself, or the simple dignity in her movements despite her obvious physical discomfort. When the cashier had started making comments about the woman's method of payment, Keanu had felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He'd witnessed this kind of behavior before. The casual cruelty that people sometimes showed to the elderly. as if age somehow made them less deserving of patience and respect. He hadn't intended to reveal his identity. In fact, he'd been hoping to get through the entire shopping trip without anyone asking for a photo or an autograph. But watching the elderly woman's hands tremble as she tried to gather her scattered coins from the floor had triggered something protective in him. Now, as he walked out of the store into the late afternoon sunlight, Keanu wondered about the elderly woman. He glanced around the parking lot and spotted her a few spaces away, struggling to load her groceries into an older model car. Without hesitation, he changed direction and approached her. "Need a hand with those?" he asked, keeping his voice gentle so as not to startle her. The woman looked up, squinting slightly even though the sun was beginning to lower in the sky. "Oh, it's you again," the kind young man from inside. She didn't seem to recognize him as anyone famous, which was refreshing. "I'm managing all right, but thank you for offering." Keanu nodded but didn't walk away. "I'm happy to help. Those bags can be heavy." After a moment's consideration, she smiled and stepped aside. "Well, if you're sure you don't mind. My arthritis makes lifting things a bit challenging these days." As Keanu carefully placed her groceries in the trunk, he introduced himself simply as John. It was his character's name in the movie he was filming, and it was easier than dealing with the reaction his real name might cause. "I'm Eleanor," the woman replied. "Eleanor Wilkins. And I'm very grateful for your help, both now and in there." She gestured toward the store. "That was rather embarrassing." "You have nothing to be embarrassed about," Keanu assured her, closing the trunk gently. "Everyone deserves to be treated with respect." Eleanor studied his face for a moment. "You know, you remind me of someone. My late husband Tom used to say that kindness matters more than anything else in this world. He'd have appreciated what you did in there." Keanu smiled, touched by the comparison. "Your husband sounds like a wise man." "Oh, he was." Eleanor's eyes took on a faraway look. "We were married for 52 years. Been on my own for 3 years now." She shook her head, slightly as if to clear away the memories. "But listen to me. Going on about the past to a stranger." "Not a stranger," Keanu corrected her warmly. "Just a friend you hadn't met until today." Eleanor laughed softly at that. "Well, my new friend John, thank you again. I should get these groceries home before the milk spoils." As she carefully climbed into her car, Keanu had a sudden thought. "Eleanor," he called through the open window, "do you shop here often?" She nodded. "Every Tuesday and Friday. It's closest to my house, and they usually have good prices on the basics." Keanu considered this information, an idea beginning to form. "Drive safely," he said, stepping back from the car. He watched as she drove away, then pulled out his phone and called his assistant. "Hey, Mike, I need to talk to you about something. Can you meet me at the hotel in 30 minutes? I just had an experience that got me thinking." Later that evening, Keanu sat in his hotel room with his assistant Mike and the film's location manager Pam. He'd just finished telling them about what he'd witnessed at the market. "So what exactly are you thinking?" Pam asked, tapping her pen against her notepad. Keanu leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm not interested in getting anyone fired. That cashier, she looked exhausted like she's carrying a heavy load. But what if we could turn this into something positive for the whole community?" Mike raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "The owner of Valley Market, do we know who that is? Could we arrange a meeting?" Pam nodded. "That would be Roger Thompson. Local guy, owns 3 markets in the area. I've dealt with him about filming permits for some exterior shots. He seemed reasonable." "Perfect," Keanu said. "Can you set something up for tomorrow morning? Early before I need to be on set?" While Pam made the call, Keanu explained his idea to Mike. He wanted to create a program at the market that would specifically honor and assist elderly customers. Something that would make shopping easier for people like Eleanor, while also encouraging the staff to practice empathy and patience. "You know this isn't in your contract, right?" Mike said with a small smile. "Taking on local community projects in every town where we film?" Keanu shrugged. "Sometimes opportunities to do something good just present themselves. You have to be open to recognizing them." "Meeting set," Pam announced, hanging up the phone. Tomorrow at 7 a.m. Roger Thompson sounds very interested in meeting with you. Great, Keanu replied. And Mike, can you look into something else for me? I want to find out more about Eleanor Wilkins, where she lives, what her situation is. Not in a stalker way, he added quickly. I just want to make sure she's okay. Mike made a note. I'll see what I can find out discreetly. The next morning, Keanu arrived at Valley Market before the store opened. Roger Thompson was waiting for him by the entrance, looking both nervous and excited about meeting a Hollywood star. Mr. Reeves, this is quite an honor, Roger said, extending his hand. Please come in. I've got coffee waiting in my office. Keanu followed him through the empty store, noticing how different it felt without customers and with only a few staff members stocking shelves. They passed the checkout area where yesterday's incident had occurred, and Keanu paused briefly, remembering Eleanor's dignity in the face of unkindness. Once they were seated in Roger's modest office, Keanu explained what he had witnessed and his idea for a community program. I'm thinking something like a senior support hour, he suggested. Maybe twice a week you could have dedicated staff who are specifically trained to assist elderly shoppers. People who understand that some customers might need extra time or help reaching items or carrying groceries to their cars. Roger nodded, thoughtfully. That could work. We've got a pretty significant elderly population in this area. And maybe a training program for all your staff, Keanu continued. Not to shame anyone, but to help them understand the challenges that some customers face. Empathy training, essentially. About yesterday, Roger began, looking uncomfortable. I want to apologize for how that cashier behaved. I've already spoken with her. Keanu held up a hand. I'm not here to get anyone in trouble. Everyone has bad days, and retail is tough work. I'm more interested in creating something positive out of the experience. Relief crossed Roger's face. That's very understanding of you. So what exactly are you proposing? I'd like to fund the initial setup of this program, Keanu explained. Training materials, any necessary equipment, maybe even a small bonus for staff who volunteer to be part of the senior support team. No publicity, he added firmly. I don't want my name attached to this. Roger looked surprised. You do all that anonymously? Keanu nodded. The point isn't recognition. It's about making life a little easier for people like Eleanor and maybe helping your staff see that a little patience can make a big difference. By the end of their meeting, Roger had enthusiastically agreed to implement the program. They shook hands and Keanu left feeling satisfied that something good would come from yesterday's uncomfortable encounter. As he walked to his car, his phone buzzed with a text from Mike. Found info on EW, widowed 3 years ago, lives alone in small house on Pine Street. Seems to be managing okay but on fixed income. Neighbor checks in regularly. Keanu read the message twice, then typed back, Thanks. One more favor to ask. Later that morning, between takes on set, Keanu finalized his plans. Sometimes the smallest gestures could create the biggest ripples. He wasn't interested in grand, public displays of charity. Those often seemed more about the giver than the recipient. Instead, he believed in quiet acts of kindness that might inspire others to look differently at the world around them. As he prepared for his next scene, Keanu thought about Eleanor counting out her coins and the cashier's impatience. It was easy to forget that every person you encountered was fighting battles you knew nothing about. Sometimes all it took was one moment of genuine connection to make a difference in someone's day, or even their life. The following morning, the cashier arrived at Valley Market 20 minutes before her shift was scheduled to begin. She hadn't slept well, replaying yesterday's events in her mind over and over. The look of hurt on the elderly woman's face, the quiet disappointment in Keanu Reeves's eyes, the whispers from other customers. Sleep had come in fitful bursts, interrupted by waves of shame that washed over her each time she drifted into consciousness. She'd considered calling in sick. The thought of facing her coworkers after yesterday was almost unbearable. They must have all heard about what happened by now. But she couldn't afford to lose the hours, and hiding would only delay the inevitable. As she pushed open the employee entrance, She braced herself for sideways glances and whispered comments. Instead, she found a note taped to her locker. Please, see me in my office before your shift. Roger. Her stomach dropped. This was it. She was going to be fired. Despite what Keanu had said about not asking for her termination, the store couldn't afford the bad publicity if word got out about how she'd treated an elderly customer, especially with a celebrity witness. She changed into her uniform slowly, trying to delay the inevitable. When she couldn't stall any longer, she made her way to Roger's office and knocked on the door frame. You wanted to see me? She asked, her voice smaller than she intended. Roger looked up from his computer and gestured to the chair across from his desk. Have a seat. She sat, hands fidgeting in her lap. If this is about yesterday, I know I messed up. I was tired and stressed about my exams, but that's no excuse. I'm really sorry. Roger studied her for a moment. I won't pretend I'm not disappointed. That's not how we treat customers here, especially elderly ones who might need extra patience. I know, she whispered, looking down. Are you firing me? No, Roger said, surprising her. I'm not firing you. Her head snapped up. You're not? Everyone deserves a second chance, Roger explained. And sometimes the best way to learn is from our mistakes. He leaned forward. I had an interesting meeting this morning. I'm starting a new program here at the store, and I think you might be the perfect person to help lead it. Me? She asked, confused. Why would you want me to lead anything after what I did? Because you've seen firsthand why it's needed, Roger said simply. We're calling it the Community Kindness Initiative. Part of it will be a special checkout lane dedicated to seniors and anyone who might need extra time or assistance. The staff who work that lane will receive special training in patience and empathy. She blinked, trying to process this unexpected turn. And you want me to be part of this? Roger nodded. I want you to be the first trainee. If you're willing to learn and grow from yesterday, I think you could become an excellent advocate for our elderly customers. For the first time since yesterday's incident, she felt a small spark of hope. I'd like that, I really would. My own grandmother raised me after my mom left, and she would have been so ashamed of how I acted yesterday. Then consider this your opportunity to make her proud, Roger said. He slid a folder across the desk. This is some preliminary information about the program. We'll be rolling it out officially next week, but I'd like you to start today. She left Roger's office, folder clutched to her chest. She felt both relieved and determined. She hadn't expected a chance to make amends, but now that she had one, she wasn't going to waste it. The morning passed in a blur of training materials and conversations with Roger about how the special checkout lane would work. By lunchtime, signs were already being posted about the new initiative, and a special lane was being designated with a fresh coat of blue paint and a new sign that read, "No rush checkout, take your time." Just as she was returning from her lunch break, she spotted a familiar figure entering the store, the elderly woman from yesterday. Her heart began to race. This was her chance to apologize properly. She approached carefully, not wanting to startle the woman. Excuse me, ma'am. The elderly woman turned slowly, recognition dawning in her eyes. Oh, hello. Her voice was polite but guarded. I just wanted to say how sorry I am about yesterday, the cashier said, the words tumbling out in a, "First, the way I treated you was inexcusable. You deserve so much better, and I'm truly ashamed of my behavior." The elderly woman's expression softened slightly. Thank you for saying that. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. I'm trying to do better, the cashier continued earnestly. In fact, the store is starting a new program for seniors, and I'll be working a special checkout lane where people can take as much time as they need. No rushing, no judgment. Is that so? The elderly woman glanced around, noticing the new signs being put up. That sounds like a wonderful idea. Would you like me to help you with your shopping today? The cashier offered. I could reach items on the high shelves or carry your basket. A small smile appeared on the elderly woman's face. That would be very kind, thank you. My name is Eleanor, by the way. It's nice to meet you properly, Eleanor. I'm Lisa. She offered her hand, which Eleanor shook gently. As they walked through the store together, Lisa learned more about Eleanor's life. She had been a teacher for over 40 years before retiring. Her husband Tom had passed away 3 years ago, and she now lived alone in the small house they had shared for most of their marriage. Tom always did the shopping, Eleanor explained, as Lisa reached for a can of soup from a high shelf. When he died, I had to learn to do so many things on my own. Some days are harder than others. Lisa nodded, suddenly seeing Eleanor as a complete person with a lifetime of experiences, joys and sorrows, not just a slow customer holding up her line. When they reached the checkout, Lisa guided Eleanor to the newly designated lane, which was still being set up. It's not officially open yet, but let's break it in. As Lisa carefully scanned each item, she made no move to rush, even when Eleanor once again pulled out her small coin pouch. Take all the time you need, Lisa assured her. That's what this lane is for. Eleanor counted out her coins methodically, and this time Lisa watched with respect for the independence and dignity the older woman maintained, despite her physical limitations. There, Eleanor said finally, pushing the last of the coins toward Lisa. Exact change. Perfect, Lisa said with a genuine smile. Can I help you to your car with these bags? That would be lovely, dear, Eleanor replied. As they walked to the parking lot together, Eleanor mentioned casually, You know, the strangest thing happened yesterday after I left here. When I got home, there was a gift basket on my porch with all sorts of treats and necessities, tea, cookies, canned goods, even some fresh fruit. There was a note that just said, "From a friend." Wasn't that kind? Lisa raised her eyebrows in surprise. That's wonderful. Do you have any idea who it was from? Eleanor shook her head. Not really, though I have my suspicions about that nice young man who helped me with my coins. There was something familiar about him, but I can't quite place it. Lisa bit her lip, wondering if she should tell Eleanor about Keanu Reeves. She decided against it. Something told her he would prefer his kindness to remain anonymous. Well, whoever it was, they clearly think you're special, Lisa said instead, helping Eleanor load her groceries into her car. The world is full of good people, Eleanor said, patting Lisa's hand. Sometimes they just need a reminder to show it. Her eyes twinkled knowingly, and Lisa had the distinct impression that Eleanor was far more perceptive than she had given her credit for. As Lisa watched Eleanor drive away, she felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in a long time. The exhaustion and stress that had been weighing her down seemed lighter somehow. She had made a mistake, yes, but now she had the chance to turn it into something positive. Back inside the store, Lisa noticed increased activity around the manager's office. Roger was talking animatedly with several employees, and there was an energy in the air that hadn't been there before. What's going on? She asked a coworker who was hanging a new poster about the Community Kindness Initiative. You haven't heard? The coworker replied. Apparently, someone made an anonymous donation to fund this whole program. Enough money to train all the staff, set up the special checkout lanes, even create a delivery service for homebound seniors. Anonymous? Lisa repeated. They didn't want any recognition? Her coworker shook her head. Nope. Roger knows who it is but won't tell anyone. Just said it was someone who believes in second chances and small acts of kindness. Lisa glanced toward the store entrance, wondering if she would see Keanu again before he finished filming, and left town. She doubted it. Something told her he preferred to make his impact quietly and then move on, letting others carry the torch he had lit. As her shift continued, Lisa found herself approaching each customer with new awareness. The young mother with 3 restless children trying to shop with food stamps. The man with a slight tremor in his hands who took longer to retrieve his wallet. The teenager counting out coins for a single candy bar, just as Eleanor had done. With her groceries, each person had a story. Each deserved patience and kindness. It seemed so obvious now, but somehow she had lost sight of that fundamental truth in the grind of daily frustrations. By the end of her shift, the no-rush checkout lane was fully set up. complete with a comfortable chair for customers who might need to sit while paying or bagging their items. Tomorrow would be its official first day of operation, and Lisa was scheduled to work it. As she clocked out and headed home, Lisa felt a strange mix of emotions. Shame for how she had behaved, yes, but also gratitude for the unexpected opportunity to grow. All because a famous actor had been standing in her line at the exact moment she had shown the worst version of herself. The true measure of a person isn't how they treat those who can help them, but how they treat those who cannot. Keanu's words echoed in her mind as she walked to her car. Today she had taken the first step toward becoming the kind of person she wanted to be. 2 weeks had passed since the incident at Valley Market, and the Community Kindness Initiative was already changing the store's atmosphere. The blue no-rush checkout lane had become popular not just with seniors, but with parents struggling with young children, people with disabilities, and anyone who simply needed a bit more time and patience. Lisa had settled into her new role with unexpected enthusiasm. Today she was training a new cashier named Tony on the special checkout procedures when she spotted Eleanor entering the store, wearing a bright yellow scarf despite the warm spring day. "Good morning, Eleanor," Lisa called, waving cheerfully. Eleanor smiled and waved back, reaching into her large purse to retrieve a shopping list. Over the past 2 weeks, she had become a regular presence at the store, often stopping to chat with Lisa about her garden or share stories about her teaching. Days. "I'll be right back," Lisa told Tony. "Watch the register for a minute." She hurried over to Eleanor, who was studying her list with intense concentration. "Need any help today?" Lisa offered. Eleanor looked up, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Hello, dear. I'm just getting a few things for the community center. We're having a little gathering this afternoon." "Community center?" Lisa asked, curious. This was the first she'd heard of Eleanor being involved with any community groups. "Oh yes," Eleanor nodded. "The senior center on Maple Street. I volunteer there 3 days a week. We're having a special visitor today, so I wanted to bring some refreshments." "Can I help you find everything?" Lisa offered. Eleanor handed over her list. "That would be wonderful. My eyes aren't what they used to be, and this list is rather specific." Lisa scanned the list. Fancy cookies, high-quality tea, fresh strawberries, and several other items that seemed more upscale than Eleanor's usual practical purchases. "Special occasion?" Lisa asked as they walked toward the bakery section. "You could say that," Eleanor replied with a mysterious smile. "A new friend is visiting the center today. He's been quite generous with his time and resources lately." Something in Eleanor's tone made Lisa wonder if this new friend might be Keanu Reeves, but she didn't ask. If it was him, he probably preferred to keep his visit low-key. As they shopped, Lisa noticed Eleanor seemed more energetic than usual, moving with a purpose that belied her years. When they reached the tea aisle, Eleanor carefully selected an expensive brand that Lisa knew wasn't part of her regular purchases. "Have you tried this before?" Lisa asked, surprised by the choice. "No. But Tom always said life is too short for bad tea," Eleanor replied with a wistful smile. "And today seems like a good day to remember that advice." By the time they had collected everything on the list, Eleanor's basket was full of carefully selected items. At the checkout, Lisa was surprised when Eleanor pulled out a credit card instead of her usual coin purse. "The center reimburses me," Eleanor explained, noticing Lisa's curious look. "I'm the refreshments coordinator now, can you imagine? At my age, starting a new position." Lisa smiled as she carefully bagged the items. "I think it's wonderful. You obviously enjoy it." "I do," Eleanor agreed. "After Tom died, I spent too much time alone in that house with just memories for company. The center has given me purpose again. And friends." Lisa carried the bags to Eleanor's car, noticing a colorful flyer on the passenger seat. She caught a glimpse of the words "special guest" and what looked like a schedule of activities. "What time is your gathering?" Lisa asked casually as she placed the bags in the trunk. 2 o'clock, Eleanor replied, "though I need to be there early to set up." Lisa glanced at her watch. Her shift ended at 1 today. "It sounds nice," she said, trying to sound nonchalant. "I've never been to the senior center before." Eleanor paused before getting into her car. You should come by sometime. We're not all old fogies nodding off in the corner, you know. Her eyes twinkled mischievously. In fact, why don't you stop by today, around 3? We could always use young volunteers. Maybe I will, Lisa said, surprised to find she actually meant it. As Eleanor drove away, Lisa returned to the store with a new energy in her step. If Keanu Reeves was indeed visiting the senior center today, she wanted to thank him properly for the second chance he'd given her. When her shift ended, Lisa hurried home to shower and change. She wasn't sure why she felt nervous. It was just a senior center event after all. But whether Keanu was there or not, she wanted to show Eleanor she was serious about her new commitment to community service. The senior center was a modest brick building with a well-tended garden out front. As Lisa approached, she could hear laughter and music coming from inside. She hesitated at the entrance, suddenly feeling out of place. What if they thought she was intruding? What if Eleanor had just been polite in suggesting she come? Before she could talk herself out of going inside, the door swung open, and a man in his 60s with a friendly smile beckoned her in. You must be Lisa, he said warmly. Eleanor said you might be stopping by. Come in, come in. We're just getting started. The main room of the center had been transformed with streamers and balloons. About 30 seniors were gathered, some seated at tables enjoying refreshments, others standing in small groups chatting animatedly. A table along one wall held an impressive spread of food, including the items Lisa had helped Eleanor select. Earlier, she spotted Eleanor across the room arranging cookies on a platter. When Eleanor looked up and saw Lisa, her face lit up with genuine pleasure. She waved Lisa over eagerly. You came, Eleanor exclaimed. I'm so glad. Here, help me with these strawberries. As they arranged the fruit on a platter, Lisa glanced around the room, trying not to be too obvious about looking for Keanu. Quite a turnout, she commented. What's the occasion? Eleanor smiled. We're celebrating the launch of a new program here at the center, a transportation service for seniors who can't drive anymore. It's going to make such a difference for so many people. That's wonderful, Lisa said sincerely. How did it come about? Well, Eleanor began, lowering her voice slightly. It all started with that day at the market, believe it or not. Remember that young man who helped me with my coins? Lisa nodded, her heart beating faster. I remember. After that day, he came here to the center, wanting to learn more about the challenges seniors face in the community. He was so genuine, so interested in actually helping rather than just throwing money at problems. Eleanor shook her head in admiration. You don't find that kind of sincere compassion every day. Lisa was about to ask if he was coming today when the room suddenly quieted. She turned to see what everyone was looking at and felt her breath catch. Standing in the doorway was Keanu Reeves, dressed simply in jeans and a dark button-down shirt. Unlike at the market, he wasn't trying to hide his identity today. He smiled warmly as the room broke into applause. There he is, Eleanor said softly. Our guardian angel. As Keanu made his way around the room, stopping to chat with each person, individually, Lisa watched in amazement. There was no hint of celebrity pretense about him. He listened intently to each senior, laughing at their jokes, leaning in to hear those who spoke softly and responding thoughtfully to their comments. He's been coming here almost every day between his filming schedule, Eleanor explained, noticing Lisa's expression. Not for publicity. They haven't allowed any press or photos, just to listen and understand what would actually help. When Keanu finally made his way to where Lisa and Eleanor were standing, his eyes widened slightly in recognition. You're the cashier from Valley Market, he said, offering his hand. Lisa, right? She nodded, surprised that he remembered her name. Yes, I wanted to thank you for not asking for me to be fired that day, and for everything you've done since. Keanu shook his head dismissively. Everyone deserves a second chance. Roger told me about the work you're doing with the new checkout lane. He says you've really embraced it. It's changed everything, Lisa admitted. How I see my job, how I interact with customers, even how I feel at the end of the day. A genuine smile spread across Keanu's face. That's the thing about kindness. It transforms both the giver and the receiver. Eleanor, who had been listening to their exchange with interest, touched Keanu's arm gently. Should we tell her about the scholarship? Scholarship? Lisa repeated, confused. Keanu looked slightly embarrassed. It's not a big deal. I just set up a small scholarship fund for Valley Market employees who are working while attending school. Roger mentioned you were taking night classes, trying to get your degree. Lisa stared at him in disbelief. You did that? For me? Not just for you. He corrected her gently. For anyone at the store who's trying to better themselves through education while working. The first one will be awarded next month. You should apply. Before Lisa could respond, a senior man approached with a camera. Mr. Reeves, would you mind if I took a picture of you with Eleanor? She's the heart and soul of this place, you know. Only if Lisa can join us, Keanu replied. She's an important part of this story, too. As the three of them posed together, Eleanor, beaming proudly in the middle, Lisa felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in years. From a moment of cruelty had come connections, growth, and possibilities she never could have imagined. After the photo, Keanu was pulled away to discuss details of the new transportation program with the center's director. Lisa helped Eleanor serve refreshments, watching as the elderly woman moved confidently among her peers, clearly respected and valued by everyone there. You know, Eleanor said as they refilled the cookie platter. He didn't recognize me at first. What do you mean? Lisa asked. Eleanor's eyes twinkled mischievously. When he came to the center the first time, he introduced himself as John, just like he did that day at the market. Didn't think I knew who he was. You knew? Lisa was shocked. Even that day at the store? Eleanor laughed softly. Dear, I may be old, but I'm not blind. My granddaughter has posters of him all over her room. Besides, Tom and I used to watch movies every Friday night. Speed was one of our favorites. Lisa couldn't help laughing. And you never let on that you recognized him? Some people prefer their good deeds to remain private, Eleanor said simply. Who was I to embarrass him by making a fuss? She gazed across the room at Keanu, who was now listening intently to an elderly veteran telling a story. Though I must say he's even kinder in person than he seems on screen, a rare quality in this world. As the afternoon continued, Lisa found herself drawn into conversations with various seniors, each with fascinating stories and perspectives. She promised to return as a regular volunteer, a commitment that felt natural and right. When it was time for her to leave, she sought out Keanu to say goodbye. Thank you again, she said earnestly. Not just for the second chance, but for showing me that one moment doesn't have to define who you are. He nodded thoughtfully. We're all works in progress. The important thing is to keep moving forward, trying to be better today than we were yesterday. He glanced around the room with genuine affection. These people have taught me as much as I've given them, maybe more. As Lisa walked to her car, she reflected on how much had changed because of one seemingly ordinary afternoon at Valley Market. A moment of unkindness had been transformed into a ripple effect of positive change touching countless lives. She thought about the Eleanor she had first seen at her checkout, the slow, apologetic woman counting coins, and contrasted that with the confident, purposeful Eleanor, who now coordinated events and welcomed newcomers at the senior center. Both were the same person, but Lisa's perception had been so limited by her own stress and impatience. Tomorrow she would go back to work at the special checkout lane with renewed purpose. And in a few weeks, she would apply for that scholarship. Life had given her a second chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. 3 months had passed since that fateful day at Valley Market. The summer heat had settled over the town, bringing with it longer days and the kind of humid warmth that made even the simplest tasks feel like hard work. But inside the market, things had never been better. Lisa wiped a light sheen of sweat from her forehead as she welcomed an elderly gentleman to her checkout lane. The no-rush checkout sign above her register had been joined by a larger banner that read, Community Kindness Initiative, complete with a list of services now offered. By the store. "Good morning, Mr. Chen," Lisa greeted him warmly. "Did you find everything you were looking for today?" The elderly man nodded, carefully placing his items on the conveyor belt. "I did, thanks to that young man who helped me reach the top shelf." In the cereal aisle, Lisa smiled, recognizing Tony's handiwork. He had quickly embraced the spirit of the initiative after his training, and was now one of its most enthusiastic supporters. "I'll make sure to tell Tony you appreciated his help," she said, scanning the items at a comfortable pace. "How's your wife doing? Is she feeling better?" "Much better, thank you for asking," Mr. Chen replied, his face brightening. "That delivery service you recommended has been a blessing. Now she doesn't have to worry about getting groceries when her arthritis flares up." The delivery service had been one of the many expansions to the Community Kindness Initiative over the past 3 months. What had started as a single checkout lane had grown into a comprehensive program that included home delivery for homebound seniors, a shopping buddy system for those who needed assistance in the store, and even a monthly social gathering in the community room that Roger had created by converting an unused storage area. As Lisa finished bagging Mr. Chen's groceries, she noticed Eleanor entering the store. These days, Eleanor no longer shopped alone. She was usually accompanied by at least one other senior from the community center, often showing them the ropes of the special services available at Valley Market. Today, she was with an elegant woman, using a walker who Lisa hadn't seen before.
"Eleanor!"
Lisa called, waving her over after Mr. Chen had left. "Who's your friend?" Eleanor guided her companion to Lisa's register. "Lisa, I'd like you to meet Dorothy. She just moved to town last week to be closer to her daughter. Dorothy, this is Lisa, the young lady I was telling you about." The woman studied Lisa with bright, intelligent eyes. "So you're the famous Lisa. Eleanor has told me all about you and this wonderful program you help run." Lisa felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "It's really a team effort, and it was Mr. Thompson who started it all, with a little help from a certain movie star," Eleanor added with a wink. The 3 months since Keanu Reeves had left town after finishing his film had seen his small act of kindness blossom into something much larger than anyone had anticipated. The local newspaper had run a feature on the Community Kindness Initiative, carefully respecting Keanu's wish to remain anonymous, referring to him only as an observant customer who witnessed a moment of need. The article had caught the attention of other businesses in town. Now the hardware store had its own version of the program, as did the pharmacy and even the local coffee shop. A movement had started, all because one person had chosen kindness over indifference. "Will you be at the center this afternoon?" "Eleanor," asked Lisa as she helped Dorothy organize her shopping list. "We're celebrating the launch of the transportation program. The first van arrives today." Lisa nodded enthusiastically. "I wouldn't miss it. My shift ends at noon." The senior center had become an important part of Lisa's life. She volunteered there twice a week, helping with everything from computer classes to organizing social events. The connection she had formed with the seniors gave her a sense of extended family that she hadn't realized she was missing. "Wonderful," Eleanor beamed. "Dorothy will be driving the van, you know. She used to be a bus driver in Chicago." Dorothy straightened proudly, despite her walker. 37 years behind the wheel without a single accident. "These old legs might not work like they used to, but my driving skills are sharp as ever." As Eleanor and Dorothy moved off to begin their shopping, Lisa's manager approached. "Lisa, do you have a minute?" Roger asked, his expression unreadable. "Of course," she replied, a flicker of concern crossing her face. Even after all this time, a small part of her still feared that her past mistake might somehow come back to haunt her. Roger led her to his office, closing the door behind them. On his desk was a large envelope with Lisa's name on it. "This came for you today," he said, pushing it toward her. "I think you're going to want to open it right away." Lisa picked up the envelope with trembling fingers. It was heavier than she expected, and bore the logo of the state university where she had been taking night classes for the past 3 years, slowly working toward a degree in social work. "Go on," Roger encouraged, a hint of a smile now visible at the corners of his mouth. She carefully opened the envelope and pulled out a formal letter on heavy paper. As she read the first few lines, her hand flew to her mouth in shock. "I got it," she whispered, hardly believing the words in front of her. The full scholarship, for the entire next year. Roger's smile widened. "Congratulations, you deserve it." The scholarship that Keanu had established had turned out to be far more substantial than anyone had initially realized. It would cover not just tuition but also books and supplies, allowing the recipient to reduce their work hours to focus more on their studies. But there were 5 other applicants, Lisa said, still stunned, all of them just as deserving. "The committee felt your essay about community service and your work with the Kindness Initiative really stood out," Roger explained. "And your professors gave you glowing recommendations." Lisa sank into a chair, the letter still clutched in her hand. This would change everything. Instead of taking another 3 years to finish her degree one class at a time, she could double her course, load and graduate next year. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "You could start by saying you'll accept it," Roger suggested gently. Lisa nodded, wiping away a tear. "Of course I accept. This is a dream come true." As she left Roger's office, scholarship letter carefully tucked into her purse, Lisa felt as though she were walking on air. She returned to her register with a smile so bright that customers commented on it throughout the rest of her shift. By the time noon arrived, Lisa was bursting to share her news. She clocked out quickly and headed straight to the senior center, where preparations for the transportation program celebration were well underway. The parking lot was more crowded than usual, and Lisa had to park on the street. As she approached the building, she noticed a shiny new van parked prominently near the entrance, decorated with balloons and a large banner reading, "Senior Community Transport, Dignity Through Mobility." Inside, the center was buzzing with activity. Tables had been set up for a buffet lunch, and someone had arranged flowers in colorful vases throughout the room. Eleanor was in her element, directing volunteers and making sure everything was perfect. "Lisa," she called when she spotted her young friend. "Just in time. Could you help Dorothy set up the display table with the route maps and schedules?" For the next hour, Lisa threw herself into the preparations, her own good news temporarily set aside in the excitement of the moment. By the time the official ceremony began, over 50 seniors and various community members had gathered to celebrate. The center's director, a kind-hearted woman named Judy, stood at the front of the room to make a speech. "Today marks a new chapter for our center and for seniors throughout our community," she began. "For too many of our members, lack of transportation has meant isolation and dependency. This van represents freedom and connection." As Judy continued, thanking various donors and supporters, Lisa found herself standing next to Eleanor near the back of the crowd. "I have news," Lisa whispered excitedly. "I got the scholarship." Eleanor's face lit up with genuine joy. "Oh, my dear girl. That's wonderful." She squeezed Lisa's hand warmly. "Have you told your grandmother yet?" "I'm calling her right after this," Lisa replied. Her grandmother, who lived in another state, had been supportive but concerned about the mounting student loans Lisa had been accumulating. This news would ease her worries considerably. Their attention was drawn back to the front as Judy was wrapping up her speech. "And finally, I want to share something special with all of you. While our primary donor has asked to remain anonymous, he did send a message to be read at today's celebration." Lisa and Eleanor exchanged knowing glances. Neither had expected this. Judy unfolded a piece of paper and began to read. "True connection happens when we recognize the dignity in each person we meet. This van is not just about transportation. It's about preserving independence, fostering community, and reminding us all that every interaction is an opportunity for kindness. I'm honored to have played a small part in your journey and wish I could be there today to celebrate with you. The real heroes are the everyday people in your community who choose compassion over convenience, patience over haste, and understanding over judgment. Keep being excellent to each other." A ripple of appreciative laughter moved through the crowd at the reference to one of Keanu's most famous movie lines. Though his name hadn't been mentioned, many of the seniors knew exactly who had funded their new transportation program. After the formal ceremony, As people mingled and enjoyed the refreshments, Lisa found herself drawn into conversation after conversation. Everyone wanted to congratulate her on the scholarship and hear about her plans for the future. "I can't believe how much has changed in just 3 months," she told Eleanor as they finally had a moment alone together. "From the worst day of my career to all of this." Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. "Life can turn on a dime, dear. Sometimes it takes a moment of darkness to help us truly appreciate the light. I keep thinking about what would have happened if he hadn't been in my line that day," Lisa admitted. "If he hadn't witnessed how terribly I treated you." "Perhaps someone else would have spoken up," Eleanor suggested. "Or perhaps not. But dwelling on what might have been isn't nearly as important as appreciating what is." As the celebration continued around them, Lisa thought about the chain reaction that had been set in motion by that one difficult moment. Her unkindness had been met not with matching cruelty, but with an opportunity for growth and change. Keanu could have demanded her firing or publicly shamed her, but instead, he had seen beyond the surface to the struggling student beneath. Later that afternoon, as Lisa prepared to leave, Judy approached her with an envelope. "This came for you," she said, handing it to Lisa. It was included with the van delivery papers. The envelope was simple, with just her name written on the front in a neat, precise hand. Inside was a card with a brief message. "Congratulations on the scholarship. Your essay about second chances and community service was deeply moving. Remember that we are all works in progress, defined not by our worst moments, but by how we choose to grow from them. The world needs more social workers with your perspective and heart." Lisa traced her finger over the initial at the bottom, a smile spreading across her face. Even from a distance, he was still encouraging her forward journey. As she drove home that evening, Lisa thought about all the connections that had formed because of what had initially seemed like the worst mistake of her life. She had gained a friendship with Eleanor that spanned generations. She had found purpose in her work at Valley Market and her volunteering at the senior center. And now, she had a clear path to completing her degree and beginning a career where she could continue making a difference. One moment of rudeness, witnessed by the right person at the right time, had transformed not just her life, but an entire community. The ripples continued to spread outward, touching lives in ways she might never fully know. Tomorrow, she would return to her register at Valley Market with renewed purpose. She would greet each customer as an individual with their own struggles and joys worthy of patience and kindness. And she would remember that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest moments: a handful of scattered coins, a whispered apology, a chance for redemption.